It's probably not a good thing to say. You know, you're the youngest looking, really old person I've ever met. Apologetics, I don't mean that to you. Well, maybe I do. There's no way out of that one.
I didn't take it personally until you added the caveat.
That was another. ApologeticsII, lecture 9, as I'm waiting for myself to say that so I know how to categorize it. Morality. Before we start this, just think about morals, morality. What does it mean to you? Don't read it, just look up. What does it mean to you? Morality, what is that? How do you define it?
How good you are.
Okay.
I mean, you know,
your own morality, but just morality in general kind of goes with that. So like, what's good?
Yeah.
What is right?
Yeah, knowing the difference between good and bad and doing the good.
Okay. So like when we say, like is there such a thing as society's morals?
yeah.
Like moral norms, you know, what society would say this is morally right, morally wrong. And because definitions can kind of change in a way. Not so much, so I mean with morality, what we determine morality is, I mean this is basis definition. But how about does what a society views as morally correct change?
Yes.
Yeah. It has, name an example of that.
Capital punishment.
Okay.
Homosexuality.
Yeah.
Those are two,
Yeah, you know.
But,
I mean, like
probably
adultery.
more broadly capital punishment.
Okay. Yeah. And that can go back and forth, depending on who's in government and just kind of how society goes.
Yeah.
Well, then there's...
Yeah.
But are there absolute morals, meaning things that it doesn't matter what society believes? It's always wrong or always right? Is there such a thing? And is morality really beyond what society thinks and it's just what God has dictated is right and wrong? It matters how you define what morality is in its essence. So that's why I got a little confused in all this, because you can take it either way.
Or then there's the morale of the group.
Yeah.
Sometimes just means how their attitude, if they're in a good mood.
Yeah. So that's different than what we're talking about, but that's a similar word, yes. So just know that there's maybe 2 definitions for looking at morality, or maybe more. We'll just dive on in here. It's not too deep, but it is a little bit. That's not master's college, is it? But it's like master's level here. Before the absolute nature of morality can be understood, you got to define the thing. Morality is prescriptive, which means an ought. You'll understand this in a second. Ought to do something, but not merely descriptive as is. Something is right or wrong. But Just look at that, and here's the explanation. Morality deals with what is right as opposed to wrong. Right versus wrong. It is an obligation, that for which a person is accountable. It is not just a personal viewpoint, I wrote. One's morality, or whatever someone says is morally right or wrong, that's got some weight to it. I wrote the weight of maybe justice, the weight of potential negative consequences for going against it. Because if you say this is wrong, even in just your world, yourself, it's wrong. I mean, that's not a simple statement. If this is wrong, then that's significant. There's some weight behind that. There's an obligation dealing with it, and Geisler had a lot to say on that. I just kept it out of there because it was too deep. But we'll deal with this ought thing maybe later. Yeah, it is later on. But let me explain that. Because you can define morality and say, murder is wrong. And that's just a definition. Murder is wrong. Okay. But then you make the saying, you ought. I should delete that if you can. I can't explain it. That's later on. And I didn't get enough sleep last night. That's my excuse there. Plus, I don't know what I'm talking about. The term morality can be used either descriptively, to refer to some codes of conduct put forward by a society or some other group, such as a religion, or accepted by an individual for own behavior. So this descriptive, and this is the one where it's relative to the person or society or a religion. They have their own morality, viewpoint, I guess, morals. And then there's normatively. So a guy named Norm figured this out. Or normatively, to refer to a code of conduct that, given specified conditions, would be put forward by all rational persons. Now, try and come up with something that most or all rational people would say is wrong, bad? What, can you come up with anything?
Murder.
Okay, murdering someone that's innocent, we'll say. Okay, I'll be real technical there because I wrote that in there. Yes. How about rape? There's not too many people who are going to say it's good. There are some really poor people out there that might think that. Hurting innocent children, or you know, I mean, because you can say hurting a child, well, what do you do when you spank them? But torturing people for fun.
So that's changing in our society, but
Yeah.
through television.
So there's some things. I mean, stealing. Forget what I said on this. Stealing from the poor, let's say. Being unfair to little kids or the elderly, somebody can be taken advantage of real easy. I think most societies would say that is wrong, you don't do that. I think we see that in societies no matter how primitive it is. There's a whole bunch of other things, but just be aware of that. Then there's other things that are kind of varies. Right, wrong.
Yeah.
The term morality can be used, okay, we said that. To take morality to refer to an actual existing code of conduct put forward by a society, code of conduct is key here, results in a denial that there is a universal morality. So if you talk about society's morality, then I guess you're denying that there's a universal one. So you have to be careful of that. It's like local church and universal church. Can you have both? Many, of course, believe that morality is relative. We'll deal with this as we go on. Moral relativism. It is based upon current attitudes towards moral issues. And I believe that moral relativism is a thing that's real, but it's not right. It's not wise to think that way. So as society's views changes, so does morality. So it might be wrong today to
Smoke in public, whereas before
Yeah,
it was just normal.
Yes. Though before it was, illegal and wrong and morally wrong to, let's say, smoke marijuana. So now I guess it's morally okay because we made it prohibition days. Yeah, so some things like that. Definitely dealing with living together and sin and then homosexuality. Those are things that have changed in society's viewpoint. Thus, morality in this popular relativistic paradigm, that means how you look at things, is totally dependent upon and relevant to a society's viewpoint on any potential moral issue at hand. So, this kind of probably the current working definition of morality today is this how society or a group of people views what's right and wrong, which can change.
Is right before our eyes on gay.
Yeah, in a day, in a week, in a year, it can just change like that. Certain things happen, and all of a sudden, the whole thing shifts.
Like it's okay to murder babies now.
Yeah. Right. In 1973, the whole big shift right then. So things have been going on underneath, but still, it was a huge change of what is considered right or wrong. Sometimes, back it up, law or a legal system is differentiated from morality or a moral system. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. There's our laws and then there's morality. They have rules and laws and all that. Although there is often considerable overlap in the conduct governed by morality and that governed by law, laws are often evaluated, of course, on moral grounds. Moral criticism is often used to support a change in the law. But remember, they're different. Just know that. Sometimes morality is regarded as a code of conduct that is put forward by religion. But even when this is not the case, morality is thought by many to need some religious explanation and justification. So most people associate morality with belief system and God. Well, however, just as with law, some religious practices and precepts are criticized on moral grounds. So they have some, okay, I see what they're talking about, on moral grounds. Discrimination on the basis of race, gender, or sexual orientation. Today, that's a big deal. Because Baptists could be accused of this, at least with sexual orientation. We're going to discriminate on that here. I don't like that term discriminate, but we're not going to have a male to female transgendered person become a Sunday school teacher.
Well, the word discriminate is turned into a bad word when it's not always a bad word.
Right.
The society's been programmed.
Right.
manipulated to change
Yeah.
their definition.
It means you're being unfair to that person.
You discriminate when you decide what to eat.
Going shopping at the grocery store. And this because it's cheaper or whatever. Yeah, low fat. Poor fat products, the high fat foods. I feel sorry for them. That's not fair. Morality is only a guide to conduct, whereas religion is always more than this. This is from Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, just so you know. Religion is a bigger thing than just morality. It is possible for a society to regard morality as being concerned primarily with, I like this, minimizing harms, like pain, disability, suffering. So morality deals with that. It really does. And that's kind of a universal statement. Such a society might claim that their morality, in which minimizing the harms that all human beings can suffer, is a primary concern. Sorry, that's a long sentence. Let's go on. Although all societies include more than this in their moralities, meaning more than just the suffering part, the pain part, this feature of morality, that means minimizing pain, harm, and suffering, unlike these other issues like purity and sanctity or accepting authority and emphasizing loyalty, which are morals, I guess. So this one, which one? Minimizing pain, harm, and suffering, he says, is included in everything that is regarded as a morality in all societies. So that's a universal norm, I guess, in all societies, minimizing pain, harm, and suffering. Minimizing doesn't mean you can't do anything. But,
Well, because you can use that to justify abortion.
yeah, like
For
a
the-
deformed baby.
Yeah, or just even the mother, because it's going to minimize the pain of raising a child. I mean,
Yeah.
making the Nazis
Right.
could even use that, so you got to be careful.
On society, the pain and
Yeah.
suffering for society.
That's
Yeah.
why morality can be really
Yeah.
bad.
How do you define that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a vague statement there. Because minimizing harm can conflict with accepting authority and emphasizing loyalty, there can be fundamental disagreements. So you got disagreements because, like, if you're going to discipline a child,
Yeah.
you got conflicting issues there. Okay. Natural law theories of morality claim that any rational person in any society, even one that has a defective morality, can know the general kinds of actions that morality prohibits or requires. So natural law is the non-religious way of explaining a universal morality. So what they say there, any rational person in any society should know this, even if they're morally corrupt, should know this. Well, how does that happen? Well, we'll get to that. That's in the next page. Where's that at? Well, it's at the end. So if you turn to the third page real quick here, Genesis 1, we're made in God's image, and also Romans 2:14, verse 15, it says, which show the work of the law written in their hearts. We'll get there, but God has written the moral code, I believe, in our hearts,
Yeah.
in everybody's hearts. So as long as they can think, the brain works, they will know that, like, murder is wrong, rape is wrong, stealing is wrong, lying is wrong. They'll have that. And what's the Holy Ghost doing? What's He sent to do? To convict the world of sin, righteousness of sin. Yeah. He goes on here, the theological version of the natural law theories. This is put forward by Kindness and others. This is because God implanted this knowledge in the reason of all persons. I agree. So you can go on with that, but that's what we just said. It's implanted in us as humans. I wrote, it is very probable that all societies that have ever existed hold to a morality that says that murder and torture of the innocent is wrong, that rape is wrong, that stealing from the poor is wrong, because some say, rob from the rich, give to the poor. Well, at least from the poor is wrong. That not taking care of the basic needs of the helpless is wrong. I said, it's very probable. It's a guess on my part there. But it's in red, so I think it's right. This is from Norman Geisler. I don't know why there's an X afterwards. Moral absolutes can be defended by showing the deficiency of moral relativism. So this last part dealing with the concept of morality as relative. It's however you view it. You may say something's right, I may say it's wrong. Who am I to get involved with your morality? How about a pedophile's morality? Huh? Yeah. For either there is a moral absolute, or else everything is morally relative. Now, this is going to be a little logical, not game, but here we go with this. So pay attention in this part, kids, because you want to get this, because if everything's relative, you already got a problem right there. You made an absolute statement. Everything's relative, so you can't do that. Hence, he wrote this, hence, if relativism is wrong, then there must be an absolute basis for morality. So, if you say relativism is wrong, okay, there's an absolute then, okay. Everything is relative to an absolute. And that's true, I agree with that. But then you say, simply by asking relative to what? So if you say it's relative, well, relative to what? You've got to have an absolute to compare it to. You can't just say it's relative to relative things. That doesn't make any sense. It can't be relative to the relative, because that's not relative. In that case, it cannot be relative at all, ad infinitum, since there would be nothing to which it is relative to. Albert Einstein did not believe everything was relative in the physical universe. He believed the speed of light is absolute. I don't know why I put that in there, but anyways, that was helpful.
Einstein's relativity theory.
Yeah, oh yeah, the theory of relativity. Thank you. Brought me back to I wrote, which is more important than anything else on here.
Right.
Thus, morality has to be relative to some standard, some absolute, or it doesn't exist. In my world that I live in, every person has their own moral viewpoint. So what's the absolute there with people? Oftentimes it's not the Bible.
It's the law.
It's not the law. It's
It's
nothing.
their own
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
conviction.
It's what you think is right. It really gets down to anything we say is right or wrong. You got the Bible, you got these other references you can go to, but you're going to make your own decision based on that's what I think is right. I'm the absolute. Yes.
I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to like the Church of Satan and all that kind of stuff, but I've heard, I think that's one of their absolute top first priority things they say is do what thou wilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like like their verse they follow or
Right.
whatever.
I've heard of that
And
too.
that is fits
That fits
that,
in.
yeah. Totally. So that's
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I don't know exactly how that's stated, but it's basically do what you want to do. That's the highest law you can live by. They throw in little side things that kind of make it sound better, but don't hurt people. Because they got a lot of bad press, torturing and killing innocent people. Measurement, I didn't do the last part. Every person has their own moral viewpoint. They base it ultimately upon what they think is right or wrong. And really that's what it all gets down to. You can say I base everything I do on the Bible. You base everything that you do on what you think the Bible is saying. And hopefully you're thinking right. As a Catholic or a Mormon or a JW might say that, and it might be totally different than yours, because that's how they view it. You say, well, they're viewing it wrong. Well, I think you're right, but it gets down to your opinion. Measurement is impossible without absolute. So how do you measure things? Even moral relativists make such statements as, the world is getting worse or better. Compared to what? It's impossible. But it's not possible to know it is getting better unless we know what is best. Right? You got to have, it's better compared to what? So you have this best thing. Less than perfect is only measurable against, you got to have a perfect. Hence, all objective moral judgments imply an absolute moral standard by which you can make, this is a major statement, should have been read. I'll read it again. Because if you say something is wrong, of course you know this, but compared to what? What do you say it's wrong or right, compared to what? And what does it usually get down to? Compared to what the person thinks is right or wrong. Then some might go to what society as a whole says, but it gets down to what you think is right or wrong. Moral disagreements demand objective standards. Real moral disagreements are not possible without an absolute moral standard by which both sides can be measured. Because some people say it's right, some people say it's wrong. No? But you can't have two opposing things be right. For example, Hitler was an evil man versus Hitler was not an evil man. They both can't be true. Unless there's an objective moral standard by which Hitler's actions can be weighed, we cannot know that he was evil. You cannot say anything. Just think if you were an evolutionist, believed in evolution. Everything is just by chance, and how do you have right and wrong?
By natural selection.
Yeah.
Well,
You can follow some principles there, but really getting down right or wrong, there's no right or wrong, it's just how it plays out. Who's to say? May the strongest survive.
Right.
They say that up here in just a little bit, something like that. Next one, moral absolutes are unavoidable. Total moral relativism reduces to statements such as, you should never say never. You should always avoid using always. Or, I didn't write this, he did. You absolutely ought not to believe in moral absolutes. Here it is. Ought statements are moral statements. And ought never statements are absolute moral statements. So, it's interesting. So there is no way to avoid moral absolutes without affirming a moral absolute.
Right.
Because you have to say it's an absolute, because I'm absolutely sure there's nothing that's absolute or moral absolutes. How can you be that way? You just disagreed with crossed your principle. Total moral relativism is self-defeating. Making a moral absolutive statement, such as everything is relative, is oxymoronic. If everything's relative, then so is that statement. If morality is relative, then so is the moral statement that is being made there. Meaning you can't trust it because it's relative. If you didn't understand that, read it 3 times backwards. You'll get it. Going on with this, I think you got it, so don't get confused here. It's just one simple truth in all this. If there is an absolute basis for morality, then why do so many believe that all morality is relative? Why is that? Well, the reasons for this are mostly based on the failure to make proper distinctions.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still not following him yet, but here we go. Relativists confuse fact and value. What is and what ought to be.
Right.
Here we go. What people do is subject to change, but what they ought to do is not.
Right.
Okay, so you can have people doing something in society, and that can change back and forth, but what they ought to do, what is right to do or wrong to do, or ought not to do. There's a difference between sociology and morality. Sociology is descriptive. That means it explains the facts of society's specific morality. This is what they are doing. They have homosexuality, they have people practicing fornication, doing drugs. Those are facts.
3 women just got married together.
3?
Yes. It's weird.
Where? In
Just
America?
the news. Somewhere, yeah, I think so.
In America?
Yeah,
Whoa.
I didn't click on the article, but
Well, I don't see
I
anything
think
stopping
that's
this.
polygamy.
Yeah.
it's just weird.
See, the only reason they haven't gone to that, I think, is because of the religious context with polygamy. Because otherwise it'd be... I mean, that's a natural course of things. If you've got people mutating their bodies
toast.
to be a different gender, I think taking out an extra spouse is a little easier to do. Yeah, it's going to get weird, and I mean, I'm not going to be funny here, farm animals and all these other things.
Well, a guy also wanted to marry his computer.
Yeah?
Just
And there's
recently
dolls,
released.
these big, what you're thinking about, this like dolls that
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids would have, but there's
Yeah.
bigger ones. There's people that have weird fetishes for those.
Weird.
And some of these you say, that's got to be really rare. Don't go studying it, but I have. It's not so rare. I forget the name of it. They have whole clubs in cities where they get together and they have their little favorite teddy bear or whatever.
That creeps me out.
It's weird.
They need to understand that Washington State Patrol will not, however, allow them in the
HOV, yeah.
You can bring your business, because it's a corporation as a person. People are doing that.
Really? But if you are legally married to this teddy bear, that might work.
Oh man.
And I'll pronounce you messed up idiot
And
and
stuffing.
a stuffed bear. Okay, let's go on. Sorry for that. That was not
It
helpful to
was
anyone.
Dean's fault.
Yes, it was. You make me
Sorry.
up. So sociology is descriptive. Morality is prescriptive. Big words, you say, I don't like it, I don't like it. Well, get it here. Here we go. Prescriptive meaning states what a society's morality ought to be. Not what it is, but what it ought to be. Descriptive is saying what it is what it is. And prescriptive is what it ought to be, or ought not to be. But not what it is. So that's in red. Relativists confuse the changing factual situation, because they can change, with unchanging moral duty. So it's hard. It's going to be hard to talk to a moral relativist. One thing you can get them on is, are you making an absolute statement here?
Yeah.
About morality? You can get them there because they go, well, no. Let me finish this page and we'll have a short break. Just to breathe a little bit and we'll finish up pretty quick. The last part is easier to understand. Trust me. There's confusion as well between an absolute moral value and changing attitudes regarding what a given action violates, whether a given action violates that value. So you can have a morality, but there's a principle, but is this thing that's going on breaking that moral principle or not? I wrote, it used to be morally objectionable to have women and or blacks be allowed to vote. That is a morality, I don't know. But now it's not. Did morality change? This is my statement, so I might be wrong, and this is how I view it. No, our society's attitude toward the moral principle, like involving the importance of all human beings, that's changed. How you view it, how you apply it, changes. The moral principle was overlooked, that humans are of equal value. They just didn't see that, I guess. Also, in harsh debate today is the topic of sexual orientation. Should homosexuals be given the same rights and privileges as heterosexuals? One's attitude towards the moral principles of marriage and, I call them love relationships, may be quite different than others. So, like today in society in America, most people who polled on the streets are going to say that homosexuality is, they may not be, but it's not such a bad thing. Most people. Whereas 50 years ago, let's say 80 years ago, most people would say it's horrible.
8 years ago, 99% of the people would have said it was horrible.
Right. It's ridiculous. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Of course it's bad. It's not like, I don't know what the wind's blowing here today. Often moral relativists confuse the end, the value of it itself, with the means to attain that value. So these are arguments, like if you're in the world of apologetics, you're going to use. So I don't know if you are, but I'm supposed to be teaching you this, so there we go. Most political disputes are of this sort. Both liberal and conservative politicians agree that justice should be done. There's your moral principle. That's the end. They merely disagree as to whose program is the best means to attain what they call justice. Both militarists and pacifists desire peace. In the end, they simply disagree as to whether a strong military best attains this peace. So you just apply that all the way across the board. How to get to the goal. Another important difference, often overlooked by moral relativists, is that between the absolute moral command, you're going to lose it on this one, and the relative way a culture can manifest it. Hang with me, hold on. All cultures have some concept of modesty and propriety in greeting someone. I'd say it's totally different than that. In some, a kiss is appropriate, right? Not here, though, right?
No.
I don't go up to you and kiss you. Definitely, if you're a female, I don't do that. And a male, even more definitely. Because I gotta be honest. On the cheek I'm talking about. I would rather kiss a female on the cheek than a man. Just to be totally honest with you. I don't know why that would be. I don't know. But it's just kind of the way I am. Anywho, is that a moral thing? I don't know. But that's what he wrote. What should be done is common, meaning to show a proper greeting, but how should that be done? So the two kisses on the cheek, you can do that, but most people are going to wig out at you. Or slap you.
In this culture.
In this culture. Whereas in another culture, if you just did a high five, or yo, what's up, what's happening, one of these things, they're going to go, what was all that? In an Asian culture, what? They don't bump heads, you got to be careful. If you just go like handshake, what are you doing?
They won't
want to fight?
Yeah. That's a pretty opposite of kissing and it's not even touching.
Yeah, not even touching. Of course, is that morality or just etiquette? I don't know. Maybe they cross over. A legitimate discussion to decide which value applies to a given situation is not the same as the discussion over whether there's an absolute value. So applying it to certain situations versus an absolute value, yeah, there is a difference. For example, we err if we think that anyone who believes a pregnant woman has the right to an abortion places no value on human life. Here's his point. You might agree that, yeah, they don't place any value. They simply do not believe that the unborn are truly human beings. They have huge value on a human being. They just don't believe the unborn are, I guess. They say that. This debate is vastly important, but it should not miscommunicate the notion that the absolute good of protecting life is the issue on the floor. The issue is whether the unborn are human persons.
Right.
Both are okay with protecting human life. So when we say they're not, I think, at least on paper, we're wrong. I think deep down inside they know. That's it.
Well, even if they don't know, they know that they don't know because he purposefully avoided it, so they don't want to know because then they have to change.
Like an agnostic, yeah. Take a short break. We'll be right back.